Well, all right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. It's your buddy CJ here. And tonight, we're talking about all things automotive industry, the car guy hobby, real gearhead talk. All the things that car guys and car girls really enjoy talking about the most. This is the place to be for that real gearhead talk. Now, I want to welcome all my subscribers back. Guys, love all my subscribers so much. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. We're getting so much great engagement. The channel is growing like crazy. Get at me at Hot Seat Gearheads on Instagram. Also got a lot of great, exciting, fun stuff happening there with your buddy CJ and all of my followers. Guys, if you're not a subscriber, please give me a like and subscribe. If you're into cars and trucks, off-roaders, classic cars, exotic cars, supercars, all of the above, what's going on in the industry, cool automotive, car guy, truck guy events, this is the place to be for all that real talk. We just have a blast around here, and welcome everybody. Let's get into it. Tonight, we talking about that Jeep life. Jeep life, let me tell you something. Jeep, what an incredible, storied brand in this country and across the globe for off-road enthusiasts, for truck enthusiasts, for 4x4 enthusiasts. There's been books written on the history of the Jeep, the significance going back as a military vehicle, its origins through post-World War II, and how it really took off and kind of caught fire, if you will, with enthusiasts. And over the decades, the brand has evolved, the vehicles have evolved, and they maintain just a huge, tremendous loyalty and following. And specifically, what we want to talk about tonight, guys, are 4 cool concepts recently released by Jeep as part of the 58th annual Easter Jeep Safari event in Moab, Utah. Guys, if you're an off-roader, you know all about the annual Easter Jeep Safari event in Moab, Utah. This event's put on by Moab's Red Rock Four Wheelers Group, and it's one of the largest 4x4 events in the world. So if you like to get dirty, if you like to get down in the mud, you know all about it. Now, your buddy CJ, full transparency, look, I'm more of a car guy. I grew up around trucks and heavy trucks and that type of thing. That's a whole other story. But I was never really sort of a hardcore off-roader, if you will. I have owned a couple Jeeps, so I'm fully qualified to talk about Jeeps this evening. I do like Jeep, but at the end of this episode, towards the end, I'm going to share with you some of my Jeep ownership experiences and what I think about the future of the brand. But I want to kind of start out by talking about these 4 cool concepts that Jeep is kind of showcasing out at the 58th annual Easter Jeep Safari event out in Utah. So, guys, as we do in this channel, we look at things together and we kind of talk about them. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Let's take a look at the first concept vehicle together this evening coming from Jeep. Guys, take a look at this. This one's called the Jeep Wrangler Lowdown. What we're talking about here is the Wrangler Unlimited platform, which is that extended 4-door version of the Jeep Wrangler. This one's been fitted with the 6.4 liter Hemi. So are you kidding me? That Jeep platform with that Hemi, I can only imagine what it's like to drive one of these. I know that they went to production with the Hemi-powered Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. The one I owned had that 3.8 liter Pentastar V6, and I always say that was plenty of power, plenty of output, honestly, for this vehicle on the road. Candidly, I was never an off-roader, but I digress. Let's get back to this thing because I think it's an absolute beast. The name Lowdown comes from what Jeep engineers tell us. They wanted to keep the center of gravity low. So while the Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Lowdown has those 42-inch tires, you can see the big rubber and wheels on this thing, it does not have a lift. Isn't that interesting? What we're talking about here is a Jeep Wrangler Unlimited 6.4 liter Hemi with 42-inch tires, massive tires and wheels, but no lift. So your center of gravity is lower. That's going to affect the off-road handling, the on-road handling characteristics. And in order to accomplish this, Jeep engineers had to do some interesting things, the designers and engineers. What they had to do was come up with some clearance for that massive rubber. And they had to do it by kind of shaving away some space Look at the fenders, look at the flares, really kind of unique configuration there. You can see how the bumper is kind of shortened up front, and this theme of performance kind of echoes throughout the vehicle. The other thing I'll say is that there are no interior screens. Jeep eliminated the touch screens, the infotainment, and what the lead designers and engineers say is, listen, this Jeep Wrangler lowdown concept has some serious exhaust in it. Okay, it's a serious performance exhaust system, and it's got a loud setting and a ridiculous settings. And Jeep designers and engineers said that's all the infotainment you need. All you need to hear is that big exhaust coming out of the Jeep lowdown, which I think is kind of cool. So no infotainment. Again, it's simply a concept vehicle. How much or little of this will actually go into production, we'll see. Guys, let's keep going on this. By the way, leave me your comments. Give me a like and subscribe. You know your buddy CJ will respond to all the comments I can. Let's talk about it. What do you think about Jeep? What do you think about these concept vehicles? What does any of this mean for the future of Jeep? I'm going to tell you what I think. I'm really eager to hear from you. Guys, what are we looking at here? Look at this thing. This is the Jeep Willys Dispatcher concept. What is this thing? Jeep's idea here was to take the best of styling and design cues that kind of harken back to post-World War II era, late 40s, 1950s America, okay, and couple that with some of the modern drivetrain innovations that Jeep has embraced recently. So what we're looking at here is the Jeep, what is it, the 4xe. This is the plug-in hybrid version of the Jeep Wrangler Unlimited, okay? So this doesn't have the big old Hemi in it. This is a plug-in hybrid, which I think is kind of interesting. Is this the future of Jeep? We will see. But take a look at some of these design cues. Look at those steely wheels. Look at the rubber they chose to use. If that doesn't harken back to that 1950s era, I don't know what does. You know, take a look at the embossed, that stamped look, if you will, of the Jeep logo and the writing on the side of the hood, on the back of the vehicle. Again, that kind of harkens back to that post-World War II era. They've got the big worn winch on this thing. That is a modern, high-tech winch. But again, the whole appearance, I think, of this thing gives it that aesthetic from that early era. Look at the short front bumper on it. Interestingly enough, they did not fit this Jeep concept with carpeting. What they did was they put a vinyl floor cover, you know, kind of an extreme off-road vehicle, no carpeting needed. This thing sits on 36-inch tires, again, with those steely wheels, giving it that retro styling. You know, none of this fancy alloy, polished aluminum. What we're looking at here are those vintage steelies, which I think is really cool. Plus that paint color. It's a really neat concept vehicle. What does this mean for the future of Jeeps? You know what? Leave me comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. Does anyone own one of these Jeep Wrangler Unlimiteds with the plug-in hybrid? If so, what's been your ownership experience? I'd love to hear from you. Is this the future of Jeep? Don't know. Guys, let's keep going because as you know, on this channel, we have a lot of fun looking at some of these things together on the episode and then talking about them in the comments. Let's keep going. What are we looking at here, guys? Look at this beast. This beast is the Jeep Gladiator Rubicon High Top concept vehicle. This thing right now is being showcased at the 58th annual Jeep Easter Safari in Moab, Utah. What are we looking at here, guys? Look at the flat fender flares. Look at the retro paint job. This thing's powered by a 3.8 liter Pentastar V6, okay? This thing rides on 40-inch tires with a custom air suspension that you can control from your mobile phone, which I think is kind of interesting and cool. It's got sort of a sunbonnet top on it. You know, I think what they went for here was a highly modified Gladiator. And candidly, what do I think? Look, I think Jeep's going to sell a lot of bolt-on parts with something like this. I think they are brilliant in showcasing this Gladiator Rubicon high top out there in Moab this week. I think some of these parts, you know, the flares, etc., you know, all of these things are available. Many of these things are available as Jeep parts that you can add and bolt on. And I think this kind of gives Jeep guys, Jeep girls, off-roaders ideas for how they may want to modify their Gladiator or their Wrangler Unlimited. So there's brilliance in that. And I really love the fact that Jeep is engaging with its customer base out there at an awesome off-road event in Utah. They getting dirty. They got the engineers. They got the designers out there. They're building cool concepts. Listen, it's 2024. Sometimes we complain about the industry going EV and restrictions and EPA and all of these things. Having said that, here we are, and Jeep is out there in the dirt in Moab, Utah, with the off-roaders, engaging with you as hobbyists. I think that's awesome. Getting your reaction to these cool concept vehicles, hopefully giving us ideas and inspirations as enthusiasts to keep going in the hobby. We'll see what happens and what's next for Jeep as a brand, and whether or not any of these innovations, customizations actually manifest themselves in production Jeeps. Guys, let's keep going. Let's take a look at the fourth concept vehicle that Jeep is showcasing this week out in Moab, Utah. This is a big one. Take a look at this thing. Jeep Grand Wagoneer, but this one's been modified as a concept, bit of a demonstrator from Jeep. This one's called the Vacationeer. How do you like that? The Jeep Vacationeer instead of the Grand Wagoneer. Look at that skyloft. They call that a skyloft, okay? It's environmentally controlled, temperature and climate controlled, okay? So you can really go overland in this thing. You can live in this thing, off-road, in the desert, in your Jeep Grand Wagoneer, customized with the skyloft. Are you kidding me? So cool. Apparently they had to remove the second and third row from this vehicle in order to retrofit it, if you will, with that, what's known as the Red Tail Overland Skyloft. Okay, kind of cool. This thing's running on 35-inch tires. In terms of power plant, the Jeep Vacationeer concept is actually powered by the 3.0-liter Hurricane twin-turbo inline-6 engine. This thing's putting out 510 horsepower, 500 pound-feet of torque in this inline-6, which has been a preferred platform of Jeep across the decades, multiple iterations. Kind of cool to see this thing come to fruition, putting out some big power. Now, this is a big vehicle. Candidly, your buddy CJ is not a big fan of the Grand Wagoneer. I think this concept vehicle is cool, the Vacationeer. I think that skyloft is wild. Now, you'd have to be sort of an extreme outdoors person who embraces camping, hunting, that whole adventure lifestyle to actually use this thing. Again, I believe that's available as an aftermarket bolt-on, if you will, with some customization. That Red Tail Overland Skyloft. This one had to have the second and third row removed to have it fitted. You can see the ladder to get up there. What do you guys think? But I just think it's super cool to see Jeep out there producing these cool concepts. And I know all my off-road buddies out there in Moab, Utah this week for the 58th annual Easter Jeep Safari event, Moab, Utah. I'm sure you're all going wild seeing these really cool concept vehicles. Leave me comments if you're out there. But, you know, I love to see the engagement. I love to see Jeep doing their thing. A couple of thoughts on this, guys. I do think, as I mentioned before, it is refreshing to see a manufacturer in 2024, in the era of moving towards, you know, all cars looking alike, moving towards, you know, EVs in general. You guys know where the narrative is, where the regulatory pressure is being exerted right now. We'll see what happens. But having said that, in this brave new era where EV and hybrid is in some cases being kind of forced on some of us, slowly but surely, it's refreshing to see that Jeep is out there with legit off-road vehicles, highly customized, that will appeal to the off-road enthusiast, that have these styling cubes and these vibes that go back decades and generations. I think it's really awesome. It definitely fuels the fire of the off-road enthusiast. I think, listen, there's brilliance in this as well. Now let's talk about the business implications. Number one, Jeep's got some stiff competition. They're not just about the hobby. They're not just purists, okay? As much as we'd like to believe that ideal, let's be blunt. It's business. They're part of Stellantis, okay? And they've got stiff competition from the Ford Bronco. The Ford Bronco Sport, the full-size Ford Bronco. If you don't think that's taken away from Jeep market share, you're crazy. Now, I know Jeep people out there, shout out to those living that Jeep life. Let me tell you something. Of course, if you're a Jeep loyalist, you're a die on the hill Jeep person, and you're all about it, of course you're going to continue to go with your Wrangler Unlimited, your Rubicons, your vintage Jeeps, your CJs, whatever they might be. Okay? Having said that, not everybody has that extreme brand loyalty. When you look at the Ford Bronco, that's a comparable vehicle. Love it or hate it. Let me know what you guys think. Anybody out there own a Ford Bronco? Has anybody out there owned both? Jeep Wrangler Unlimited, and or a Ford Bronco, a modern Ford Bronco, or an older one? And then what about the Ford Bronco Sport, which is really not the equivalent? But again, Ford capitalizing on that off-road adventure appearance package, at least for the Ford Bronco Sport. And of course, the extremely capable Ford Bronco as an off-road vehicle itself, direct competitor with the Wrangler Unlimited, the Rubicon. So there's that. Also, what about Scout? We know that Volkswagen is bringing back the Scout brand as an EV. That's coming. That's potentially going to take some market share away from Jeep. It's at least a competitor. What about Rivian? Again, the brave new era. The brave new era of EV and hybrid. Jeep is making some moves. Stellantis is making some moves, but they've got others moving against them in the industry, okay? Including the Rivian. Rivian producing something really cool in some of its, another EV alternative for the off-road enthusiast or the adventurer. So if you're in the market, you're going to spend a premium for something like a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, fully goosed out with all the mods. You might consider, if you're open to the concept of an EV, a Rivian, or maybe you're holding out to check out a Scout. Okay? At a minimum, anyone who's in the market for these vehicles, unless you're wildly loyal to the Jeep brand, why not look at an Explorer? Why not look at a Bronco or a Bronco Sport? Guys, I'll tell you something else. Your buddy CJ here, for years, I always wanted to have a Jeep. Again, I grew up as more of a car guy, a lot of exposure to heavy trucks and equipment. That's a whole other story. But I was never really, nuts about the whole off-roading life and adventure life with a vehicle that could go deep and far into the woods or into the desert. Having said that, I always wanted to own a Jeep Wrangler. I grew up as a fan of those Jeep CJs and certainly the old military Jeeps and everything else. So I ended up, 2015 or 2016, I bought a brand new Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Anniversary Edition. Let me say this. I enjoyed owning that vehicle. I didn't love it. Quality was not great. It had both the hard top and the soft top. Soft top started coming apart after the first season. I mean, the stitching, was coming apart. I found the whole thing to be sort of lower level of quality than I would expect or desire for, an off-road utility vehicle. Okay, sold at somewhat of a premium. Jeeps are not cheap vehicles by any stretch. I bought my Jeep Wrangler Unlimited to use more as an SUV alternative. I used it as a daily, and it was okay as daily transportation. Back seats were not terribly comfortable. Rear storage, was okay. The main reason that I wanted to own a Jeep was to kind of get that Jeep experience. I'll be honest with you. Was never planning on going overland with it or anything like that. I've had a Jeep Grand Cherokee in the past, and that was a pretty darn good traditional SUV. But the Wrangler Unlimited, we're talking about that utility vehicle, that off-road utility vehicle style and aesthetic. I think that's why you buy a Jeep, because in your buddy CJ's opinion, you guys leave me comments, there are better SUVs. if you're buying a Jeep Wrangler or a Wrangler Unlimited as a daily, as a mall crawler, as sort of the SUV alternative, if you actually go out there independently and objectively and drive different SUVs at the same price point, if you're being really honest with yourself, real talk tonight, there are better SUVs, better handling, okay, better features, better quality, interiors, infotainment, everything. Now, if you want Jeep life, drive around your Jeep, give the peace symbol to everybody else, go to your Jeep events, whatever. You want to duck each other. Who knows about the ducks? Oh my God, that's a whole other topic. Leave me comments if you're a Jeep enthusiast and you leave ducks on people's Jeeps. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. Google it. Jeep life, Jeep culture is a thing. And listen, if that's your jam, go with it. And if that's part of your hobby and what brings you joy, do it. All I'm saying is independently, objectively, if you're looking at performance, handling, comfort, features, gas mileage, you name it, price point, value, Jeep is not going to win in any of those categories. Where Jeep wins, I'll be honest with you, and let me know what you think in the comments. For your buddy CJ, where Jeep wins is Jeep life, Jeep culture, Jeep lifestyle. If you got to have a Jeep, you're going to buy a Jeep. Well, listen, fill in the blank. The Tacoma's a better vehicle. I don't know. The Highlander, the Nissan Pathfinder, Ford Explorer. Maybe they score higher, maybe they don't. But if you want a Jeep, you are going to buy a Jeep. It's a cultural thing. It's a hobby thing. And it's a beautiful thing. I love that this whole brand has survived the decades and continues to evolve. I love that Jeep is out there right now in Moab, Utah, at the 58th annual Easter Jeep Safari with these 4 hyper cool concepts. Go do it. I think it's awesome. But make no mistake, Jeep is facing some stiff competition, whether it's from the Ford Bronco, whether it's from Scout, whether it's from Rivian, you name it. Jeep's got to keep pounding that rock to get in front of enthusiasts, to continue to innovate, and I applaud them for making the effort. And I think it's kind of interesting. Guys, what do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave me those comments. What do you think about these 4 cool Jeep concept vehicles? What's been your ownership experience? Have you owned a Jeep? If so, which one? And what's been your ownership experience? My other question for you tonight, have you gone Ford Bronco, new Ford Bronco? If so, what was it like transitioning from Jeep to Ford Bronco? Good, bad, and ugly. And guys, just share your thoughts. If you're out there in Moab, Utah, I'd love to hear from you. How's the event going? What do you think about these concepts? Is it all that? Who knows? Maybe your buddy CJ will be out there in Moab, Utah. Write it down, take it to the bank. If that's the scene, if that's the jam for Easter weekend, 2025, your buddy CJ going to be out there. Am I going to be in a Jeep? Well, that's to be seen. Who knows? I might pull up in a Cybertruck. Oh no, Jeep people. Come on. Don't come down on your buddy CJ. Guys, just having a little bit of fun. Give me a like and subscribe. Hopefully you're enjoying the channel as much as I'm enjoying bringing it to you. Your buddy CJ is going to sign out for now, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.